Amen. So I'll go right into it. And I think there's several questions for Reverend Julian, and maybe I'll start from there. So the first question is, Reverend, how can I know if the business I'm doing is the will of God for me? And how can I get direction from God to know exactly what I have been called to do?
Thank you. That's a very good question. First, I didn't think I was on the panel, but thank you, Bishop. It's a great joy and honor to meet you. I was just laughing with my brother. We were saying, yesterday we had an amazing conversation with Pastor Paul, and he's now clear that he's got some very interesting inroads into DRC and the things they are doing there. And then today we've just realized we are now also connected to your president. And it just happened because we came to give you light. The greatest privilege any one of us has is to give other people light. And as you do that without a hidden agenda, a personal agenda of how you want to just enrich yourself, God just opens doors without you forcing them. This is my brother, whether you like it or not. I'm trying to remember the question, which was, how do I know that what I'm doing is the right thing to do? I honestly believe that this place of meditation, we haven't had enough time to really delve on it. But when we do, and I think we have a few more sessions tomorrow, can we spend more time on that? To talk about how do you know? Because the thing is, there's a place where our walk in Christianity has felt more like a fantasy than a reality. And what the children of God, especially the younger generation, is saying is, you guys have talked too much. Can you show us how? So what we have to now develop is the how-to. And we need to spend time showing you how to. How do you know that God is in that? So I won't summarize my answer because it's a whole teaching. I think I'll deal with it sometime tomorrow. If my brother Anthony will speak again, he'll also touch on it because he deals very well with the how do you know that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing without any confusion whatsoever. There's a place of super excellence, super eminence in the knowledge of Christ where you know what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, even if it's in trouble. So trouble does not negate God's instruction. In fact, sometimes it is the very evidence that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing. You'd rather be in trouble in God's instructions than have a party outside of God's instructions. So I'll deal with that a bit more tomorrow, if I could kindly ask, because it'll go a little bit into the subject matter that I'll be talking about. I hope that helps.
All right, thank you. My next question will be to Mr. Angomwile. And somebody's trying to find out. Sorry, I just lost that. Okay, so the question is, what is the best approach to gaining market share from growing high-value vegetables for one who just recently started production?
Thank you very much for that question. I think when I shared, first of all, network is very important. Consistency is very important. Growing, usually what we do is, I need to emphasize this. In Zambia, we don't believe in small figures, even when we don't have the ability to have big figures. That's a tragedy we have. And the problem is we think starting small, that's why when somebody tells you, what are you doing? I'm just doing a small business. No, it's not the scale that they've asked you about. It's what you are doing. So it's very, very important to recognize where you are in terms of what you are doing, regardless of how small it is. Because you're going to climb. I mean, the journey starts with one step. And you have to be patient, and usually, when you're doing, it has to grow organically, and you have to manage the growth. So starting small, I would give an example. Like when I used to work for the Bank of Zambia, the minimum investment for government securities is 1,000. But one guy came to me and said, 1,000 is too small. Then I said, how much do you want to invest? 20,000. Do you have it? No. You see, then I told him, why don't you start investing 1,000 every day? Every week, every month. It will grow up to 20,000 and that kind of thing. So it's consistency. I was talking to one lady yesterday that if you're consistent in what you're doing, even somebody from 6 miles will find you if you're in Chilanga. The mistake we make sometimes is we grow everything at once. And then when we sell, we don't have continuity. But I learned something when I started growing tomatoes, that you stage them so that you harvest throughout. Prices change, they go up and down, but if you stay afloat, and that's part of business, you mark yourself, and people would know. They will even come onto a 0-1, and the high value crops only require just a small area. Like for example, if you're growing ginger, you just need a small area. And if you look at it, if you just get maybe 5 tubes of that tube, they'll cost maybe 1,000, as compared to maybe growing maize at maybe, let's say, 10 hectares. You see, so the high value crops like ginger, spices, garlic, these are some of the things that we did when we were growing our journey to where we are. We tried everything and realized that what the mistake we made was we did not understand the market. We grew and then looked for the market. It was supposed to be the other way around. Yeah. So I think it's consistency. And I always tell people, keep your figures. Make sure you know what you are doing and where you're coming from. You need to just to know what you're doing. And everybody will come to you. One person will, the service you give them, they will tell to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, and then everybody else will come and buy from you. Thank you.
Thank you. This one is for Mr. Wahome. And the question is, how can one ensure their desires align with God's will during times when he seems silent? And how should decisions be made then?
Your desires how will your desires align to God's desires? The principal thing is fellowship and knowing God. Today, if you spend time with somebody in your walk, you will begin to see that your similarities in the things you concur are blended. It doesn't have similar, you don't want to have more fellowship. Is it true? The clarity of the voice you need is anchored on the fellowship dimension you're having. The more you know, then you know the voice. Let me give you an example, you mothers. If today there's Sunday school there in the tent, and there are 1,000 children, and your child screams, will you be asking, who is that? You will be in the tent yourself. You will not even be waiting. How do you know that voice? My sheep know
My voice.
And that is a function of what? Of fellowship. So the clarity of knowing his voice for decisioning is really intimacy with him. Getting to spend time with him. So so now in the decisioning, so how do you make those decisions? If you stop running and start sitting, your inner man will begin to identify areas of peace or non-peace in a matter. You know, there's something that keeps you bothered and flagged something, and there are some things that give you a calm and peace. So for me, the decisioning is in the sitting, and if I check, then I will see. And then for me, tracking. I track things. Let me give you an example. When I started business, my first business was importing cars. And Peter, my assistant here, was telling me about the cars he imports. So I told him my story. So I imported cars, and I had not acknowledged God in what I was doing. So my first import, it was a 4-door car. It came as a 2-door. When it was in Mombasa, it was 4-door. But it got hit on the way by a lorry. When it arrived at my door, it was 2-door. The back had come to whatever. Then the guy says, I want my car. I said, but he said, I want my money. That's when I realized that you're at risk. The guy is not at risk. So that was my first problem. The second one, the documents came and they got lost. And for 2 years, I had the car out, but you cannot register the car. The owner of the car wants registration because on the road you cannot drive. 2 years of discord and reputational issues. The third one, I borrowed money, then I spent the money they paid me. The car arrived. It took 9 months. It had so much damage. So, and the guy was my neighbor in the same court. So I have to wait till midnight, when they sleep. I enter, I catch some sleep, then I wake up at 5 so that I leave. But I see, for 9 months, you're living out of your house. And for me, from that day, even if you bring me money, show me where the shop is to buy a car, or even lend me your car, I don't drive. I don't do car business because I have seen from tracking, it is not where I'm supposed to be. So how do I make decision? I track. God bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Kayumbayo's start. First one, how does one get mentorship in joint venture investments? Is there any network one can join? And if yes, what are the requirements?
Right. Well, thank you very much. I think when it comes to joint venture investments, I think the first fundamental point is know what you want. Know which opportunity you're seeking to pursue. And at that point, you know who's the party who's relevant. You know, joint venture planning and things of that nature is actually a lot like dating. It's about having the right chemistry, the interest. You've got your type, right? So say, for example, you want to do an agri project. You want to do a large-scale barley farm because barley goes into, say, beer production because you want to supply Zambia breweries. Now, you know that that's your skill set. So you need to look for people who are good at that. It's all about relevance. And be curious. You know, the world has changed so much. The ability to identify who's ideal for that sector on the internet, whether it be on LinkedIn. That's why some of us, we put ourselves out there, social media, of course, not only to enhance people's visibility of the work we do, but it's also, I get a lot of incredible leads. You'd be amazed what my inbox looks like on Instagram, on X, on Facebook. Incredible people send messages. Hey, listen, I've seen this video. You can tell me a bit more about that. Now, the point is, once you know what you want, position yourself. And the more curious you are, there's something, I don't want to say something that is impractical, but there's something about, and again, I'm delinking this from the desire that causes sin, which I think was spoken about earlier, but have sufficient desire to go looking. Because, and I always use this example when I'm mentoring young guys, is that I see such creativity. When a guy is interested in a girl, the things he does, you position himself, goes to a certain place where she goes, try to go through the friend, but the same creativity should be applied to when you're looking for a joint venture partner. You go check at ZDA. You know, imagine, you say, who buys wheat? No, Cargill. Okay, let me go check. Oh, where's the next agri conference taking place? Agra is happening in Nairobi. Let me go there if it's possible. Or Ministry of, just start to don't be afraid to approach someone. By the way, people like me, we're not that significant. Sometimes I get shocked the way people are so fearful of stepping up to someone like me to create a link. I say, no. If you are sure with who you want, what you want to achieve, step up, lead with that value. That's what will carry you. And that is the philosophy you must follow. When you are seeking a joint venture partner, the same is when you're seeking a mentor. So, talking about acceptance, there's no formal structure. A lot of networks are formed informally. The way you become friends with banking CEOs and other CEOs and investors, you need to understand that these are human beings who maybe you might find them on a Friday night at Sarova having a drink. You might find them at the next investment conference. ISIC is happening on the, I think, 15th, 16th of this month. Check it out. ZDA is hosting a conference. They might be at the ICA conference. Look out for what's happening. And by the way, let me give you one last piece of leakage. I like using leakage. I don't know if you guys use that in Kenya. Yeah. Okay. You know, we used to look for leakages in grade 12. And they were never leakage with regards to who we associate with. And I told you a story deliberately, and I use stories for that effect, is to mind who you associate with. Are you being filled with knowledge? Are people encouraging you? Or are they telling you that what you're dreaming is nonsense? Associate with people who have that plug and say, you know what, I think there's a way in which you can access that. So networking starts organically. It can happen in church. It can happen at the bank. It can happen anywhere. And when you are intentional, there's something that God does to make a way. Amen. Because trust me, sometimes the formula is not that straightforward. It's not one place. It's not a linear thing. You can create something, just opens up. So I hope that answer is sufficient. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Good. I'll ask you a follow-up question. I think this is on your list of targeted areas. I didn't see this, but maybe it's attached to something else. It's on climate change, being what it is today. So the question is, concerning the sectors you have talked about, what advice would you give someone wanting to start projects in line with climate change?
Okay, it's good to, you see, climate change is not necessarily directly the opportunity. Leverage on the fact that they've created a financial instrument called a carbon credit. So if you do something that is good for the environment, whether it be you plant trees or you replace something that was creating carbon, you create an offset, or you create something that there's a mechanism that measures that you can sell and make money for creating a credit. Let me give an example. Companies that do things that are not environmentally friendly are compelled by COP regulations to essentially, mitigate their carbon contribution by offsetting. So they're compelled. You find Coca-Cola, you name it, Benz, they'll buy these credits. So the first opportunity is to do something that's sustainable, whether it be in replacing energy utilization of charcoal. Zambia's got a big deforestation problem. So looking at ways in which you could find alternative sources of energy, that to me is my favorite. I think that's the biggest opportunity in matters of climate change, because that is ultimately what will enhance the capacity of our trees to, of course, add value to the environment. I don't have technical knowledge of environmental matters, but I do know that replacing matters of carbon, charcoal utilization for something more sustainable is key. Ensuring that you are adding more environmental value, replacing, for example, going back to the replacement story, like we are, sadly, I'm sorry for the environmentalists out there, we are doubling down on coal. We are having an increase of coal power generation in Zambia. To balance out, there's what we call base load. In order for you to have a stable power system, there's what you get from solar, which is quite volatile because of cloud cover, because of darkness, because solar power needs the sun. Now, in the absence of which, you could create instability. So you need the type of power which is consistent, is firm. And this is where hydro comes in. Of course, hydro is not entirely reliable because of climate change, droughts. Then you need to essentially look at the likes of coal, but it's becoming cleaner. So I think that's the number one way. But have something at the end of the day that is bankable. So whatever you're looking to do. So we did that even with Foxtel. It's a perfect example of the first climate smart green building, which uses automatic lights that if you're not in the room, they'll turn off. It's got a water harvesting system. It's got solar. It was the first, at the time when it wasn't that fashionable, there was a captive solar plant on the roof. So things like that that enable you to carry on with your everyday activities, but in a more green way, replacing things that are negative on carbon with that are positive. Yeah, that's my feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Reverend Julian, how does one handle a business he has worked on and skilled at for years if it starts to draw you away from God or the things that align with Him?
Okay, just to make sure I tracked right. The business is something that's working, and it's getting someone to be drawn away from God because, yeah. So, we must make sure that the things we build never become idols. And the only way to do that is to consistently. So, I built a pretty decent large church in Nairobi on a particular part of the city. And at some point, everybody was commenting how this is such amazing ministry that one day God asked me, "Do you love me?" I said, "Yes." And there was no other conversation. In the time of intimacy, I just said, "Okay, God, I heard you. The question was, do you love me?" And the next thing I did, I went to the church and said, "I'm leaving you." And I left it because it was beginning to take a place in my heart where I need to be able to walk away from anything I have built, especially if I think I built it. and that's hard. Now, I'm not asking you today to go, this is the thing that's feeding your family, you're just going to walk away from it. But for me, that was my experience, my instruction. And so my answer will be, if you begin to idolize it, you will know you're idolizing it. And the moment it becomes an idol, it's dangerous. That's the place to start checking yourself. So you need to start asking yourself, can I exist if I walk away from it and have peace with God? And that doesn't mean you have to. The second thing I learned to do was to begin to work myself out of jobs as quickly as possible. And that means there is a place where you will discover that whatever has grown, as you grow in those responsibilities, as you grow in that business, as you build. So we were in Zambia, and I did have a team. And, you know, we went through some good, interesting challenges. Sometimes growth is not necessarily a good thing because we grew faster than we were ready to grow. And what starts to happen, you start to throw money at problems. And I was on every magazine you can imagine, Forbes, winning awards everywhere. I was in New York all the time. I was getting all these accolades. I don't think there's a business forum I was not asked to speak at. I was in Singapore. I was speaking at very large events. And at some point, I didn't realize this thing had taken me over. Let me tell you, check yourself before God checks you. Because God checked me. And from that time, by the time I'm able to release a ministry, a church, I don't let anything ever anymore get too attached. I have space for only one in my heart. What does it say? Trust in the Lord with some of your heart. All. And lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge Him in all your ways. Then you will have your path directed by Him. But most people don't read the verses before that. It's Proverbs 3. It says, don't let truth and mercy forsake you, my son. Wear them like a bracelet, wear them like a necklace around your heart. And wrap them there so that they can be written on your heart. So these are things you need to start understanding. You need to understand the entire Proverbs 3 and what it does for business. So you know when it has started to become an idol and it's time to check. How do you check? One, have friends who tell you the truth. There's a height we get to in business where it's hard to find people who tell you the truth because you're at a level that you're flying so high. Who is telling you the truth? And I found some very interesting places of truth being told. I could even be told truth by a gardener if I'm listening. And so it's not about having friends at that level. It's about opening up your heart to understand God will use anything to speak to you. So my very quick thing is, if it has become an idol, check yourself before God checks you and readjust. You don't have to walk away from it. That was my instruction. For the big business, we took a lot of money from a large hedge fund, and that got us into some wheels and things that we didn't need to get into. It got very complicated, and I had to sell the business. But the point is, if I had listened earlier, I'd not have had to go through that. Secondly, let me just say this. It takes you about, and I don't know if the gentlemen all around me are in agriculture. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it takes about 7 to 10 years to build a business. That's the truth. This 2-year thing, I don't know, everybody is flying around thinking in 2 years you can, 7 to 10 years. So if you're going to pull this off in your lifetime, you probably have 2 inside, because you have to live about 5 years in case you lose your business for depression. So most of you have about, I'm joking, most of you have about 2 businesses in you. If you had to break down again and start building, about 2. You must understand the favor that you have if the first one works and how to take advantage of that for growth. To be able to be level-headed enough. I loved what I was hearing from my Zambian brothers. One thing your country has, I don't know if it's my reflection, Anthony, but I'm sensing a lot of humility from this nation. You guys are very humble, right? That's how we are seeing you. You need to come to Kenya. We are not on the streets for nothing. But the whole essence of the time you have, when will you begin to build? That's a whole subject. But when it grows, please be conscious of your heart. These things have a way of becoming a God without us knowing they're a God. And before you know it, you begin to worship what you don't know.
Thank you. Just talking about Zambians being humble, and I'm hearing the opportunities that are available here. We have in Zambia, do you know me syndrome? So we will grow 2 or 3 bags of maize, and all of a sudden we'll be asking everybody, do you know me? So
it's not a Zambian problem. I just want to encourage all of you. That's an African
thank
problem.
God. We thank God.
Listen, I have a question, and I know you're running the show here, but I had to use my phone to Google what the female titan is called. They're called titanides. Where are the titanides? I just threw that in there.
Bishop. I need Bishop to rescue me from that one. But so my next question is to Mr. Wahome. And the question is, could a struggling business be an indication that God is not in it? How can you know when God approves?
You see, your attention is being brought to the matter because of a struggle, not because you have a pattern of starting with Him. So my question is, somebody is saying repeat. You are going on your own until God now puts some brakes. When you're struggling, you now remember God. Now, there's something my brother Julian said he hears. Do the math. Anyway. Okay? I'm not an engineer running that kind of business for that duration. Now, how did I get into that business? A man of God who was illiterate comes to my house for dinner. And the day he came, that morning I had been auctioned. So there was no chair. Okay. And I didn't change the plan. Okay, so I just negotiated for a few stools to be left. So I was in distress, but I still kept the meeting. Those days, fax machines, there's no mobile. This was 98. So fax machines were the nearest technology. And I worked for the Central Bank of Kenya. So I used to leave work on Friday. I go to Dubai. I arrive Saturday early morning. I buy 4 fax machines. I come back Sunday, night flight. I arrive 6 a.m. on Monday. And I go to the office. You would not even know that I was not in the office. Then I would sell the fax machine. So there was a box of a fax machine in my house amongst everything that was left. So after we eat, and he says, let's pray. And this man is not educated. He doesn't know English. He doesn't know Swahili. He was speaking his mother tongue, but it's not very far from mine. And he kept saying, God will bless you through machine. He couldn't even say machine. He was saying machine. Okay? At that point in time, I thought that I will have this big shop full of fax machines. I didn't know that technology was going to come. The phones were going to be at your hand. The SIM card, which used to be phones, mobile phones in analog, used to cost $2,000. Now this phone, you don't, the SIMs are even free now. That's how the business is in the talking and the content. By that time, the business was in the gadgets. All right. So I didn't even have a clue of what was coming and how it would look like. But in my living there, I knew that this thing of telecom and technology is what God is giving me by his instruction. You understand? So 2 years down the line, fast forward, I get a lady I've grown with, a neighbor next door where we grew up, becomes the secretary of the Safaricom CEO, and she says, please come and see my boss and just do courtesy. I went, saw the guy, we hit out. Same day I left the purchase order. I'd gone to greet somebody. I left the purchase order in 2000 of $250,000. And that was my entry into that line. But remember, all this while, machine is now beginning to practicalize. You understand? So I know, as I track my whatever, that this thing I was given, number one, I'm not an engineer. Number two, I've never gone to school. Number three, I'm just flowing. So I'm just navigating this thing with the help of God. So my inclination totally is with God because he said, I will bless you through this. So I have a word, I can see it in display, I can see the business, and it gives me confidence to stay in it. Now, later on, about 15 years down the line, some guys, because I don't bribe, and they all know I don't bribe, and I don't bid cheap, I'm the most expensive, and I keep winning because he gave me. You understand? So you don't have to be the cheapest. Huh? Tell the person next to you, don't be cheapest. Just be accurate. All right, okay? Like we were told by our brother, if you're asking for money, ask properly. If it's $88 million, ask with confidence, if that's your conviction. Are we together? So just to close the story, because I am not bribing and these guys are not eating from me, we were 4 contractors, and they decide to drop me so that they give more work to these other 3. And my people came and said, Mr. Homer, if you don't call the managing director, who's my friend? This is now the 3rd one in the line in those 15 years. This thing will be cancelled. And for sure, there was a tender paper made. It was in the tender board for discussion. And I thought about it, and I remembered God gave me this thing. In the book of Daniel, it says that there's a kingdom that is going to be in the last days that has no hands. And I learned very early, don't put your hands where God is working. And I told my business development people, you can clap if you want to clap. And I told my business development people, leave it. I will not call anybody. Because the moment I pick that call, I'll be putting my hands. I want to see the process play. If he gave me, let me see the process play. And I left it. It went to the tender committee. The same managing director sees the company name. And remember here,
How does the timing come in? Things do not happen overnight. And I think the greatest key is to understand the sector. Okay? Because in most cases, agriculture was relegated to the retired. And I looked at the word retired and I noticed that that word was made up of two words. You are tired and then tired again. So if you are tired twice, you can't do anything. And also, agric was more like left to the rural areas, to the poor. Yeah, that's why, like you're saying, people think like agric is for the poor. I think when we started, when we bought the first land, everybody was laughing at us. They said, you guys have grown old. Okay? You know the land which goes to, when you're going to Kalimba farms, it's now tied from engine filling station. When we got the first land there, that road was very bumpy. I think for the first time we went to check on the land, there was actually even a python that was killed. So it was that bad. By then, everybody was talking about McKinney. And there was a deal in McKinney there which failed. So I think it was really understanding, like, what did our parents did to me when we were going for the Shambas, Kumabala. You see, little did I know that I was being taught a life skill, okay, which was actualized. So I think the interventions in life that fast-tracked some of the things that you're going to do. And I think the greatest is to know your passion and to understand. In most cases, I was going with the mindset of what everybody else was saying. Agric is for the old, agric was for retired, and I'm going there with my wife at this age. How are we going to do it? The network really helped me. Because I remember when I had 10,000 cabbages, I went to Soweto Market, flooded. I looked for the guys who were supplying ShopRite, and they told me, no, actually, Mr. Miller does this. I went to Lilai, and I met Mr. Miller. And our meeting was more like a quarrel, actually. Because he was like telling me, look, I sell 5,000 cabbages every day. So you want to give me 10,000? Why did you grow everything at once? So he was like more like shouting at me. And then I said, look, just get my cabbages, I go. You've got a market. Why are you telling all these things? So I said, okay, you just look here. First of all, I'll tell you where to get the cheap fertilizer and the cheap inputs. Then you can even get a center pivot. Then I was on a 5-acre plot. I said, what? Center pivot? That's small. Then he said, you figure out this thing. Then I lived with that center pivot question. Then 2012, I went to Nampo. It was a trip that was sponsored by USAID. Nampo is the largest grain show which takes place in South Africa. That's where we got the Agritech in Samba. Hope I've answered that.
Wonderful, wonderful. We've run out of time and there's a lot of questions. I think I'll throw just one for everybody to answer and conclude as we wind down. And this is more directed to the young entrepreneurs or people that are looking to get into business. And there's the concept, and probably Mr. Kayumba will be the best one to pick this up. There's the concept of skin in the game. Young people always come to you and tell you, I've got an idea, but there's no one to fund me. And you talked about capital is not only cash. But I think there's a misunderstanding between the concept and skin in the game. Your commitment, your passion, your discipline, that is also things that you can plant into the game. So I'll probably start with Mr. Gem, but then we can close with Mr. Ngobile, and we can wind up. Thank
Absolutely. I think the key is if you're going to risk your hard-earned money, because remember, capital, the number one source is savings. So if my own children's inheritance should go to somebody and then they lose it because they're not organized, then that's a problem. But for me, I have more trust in someone who has something to lose if the business fails. They should pledge something. We all have something we can pledge to a, it doesn't have to be collateral. It could even be, the amount of intellectual work that you put into it, the information that you gather, the intellectual property, the way it's held, depending on what type of business that you're in. I don't have the specific answer because, of course, businesses are different. So whether it be in agriculture, in mining, in energy, whatever the case may be, you must illustrate that you've done so much to bring it to a level where the only missing link is money. Because if money is the solution, that's how you know when an opportunity is good, is that if money can take it across the line, to make it actualize and you can make a return, then you know that, okay, there is some skin in there. But of course, some people can call it sweat capital, the amount, some people take years to ideate something. When you run around and truly in earnest, I think the Bible says something about this, there's no wasted effort. That effort will come to bear, it will show. And if it's from your toil, from other ventures, you should contribute something, no matter how small, and show that you have so much to lose should this fail. So no matter how that looks like, let that be your skin in the game. Thank you.
Thanks.
These are closing remarks? Okay. First, thank you very much again, Bishop Bruce, for giving us the chance to share light with you. Because I don't know my brothers very well outside of Anthony in terms of business, but I saw private equity, and so I know you understand money. I've seen agri-tech. Between yesterday and today, you've been exposed to so much information. And this is what I hope you will stay with. And whether it attaches to that skin in the game question, I don't know if you've noticed something between Anthony and I, that we've done what most of you are about to chase. We've done it. We've had what you're trying to get in your bank accounts. We've had it. We've driven everything you're dreaming to drive and flown everything you're dreaming to fly. And yet you hear us come back after all that and come and tell you the bottom line is God. That I pray, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, I pray you will catch what we've been trying to say without sounding arrogant. Because if it's dealing with billions, we've handled them. And we've gone out there, we've sat in the biggest boardrooms in London, in France, when they were trying to IPO my previous business. JP Morgan was putting that IPO business up. As I speak to you right now, I'm in the middle of a 50 million building project in Kenya, another $100 million thing here, that there. Those things are going on. Yet you've not had us throw that stuff at your face. We've come back and keep bringing you to let you know, please don't idolize that stuff. And at the end of the day, I want to say to the next generation of Africa, as God gives you light, because inside of light comes ideation.
I will not add anything. It's exactly as it has been put. It is that simple. Always remember that this earth that you have been placed to occupy has had patterns in existence. And for you to occupy effectively, you've got to superimpose a higher pattern, a higher way of thinking, a higher way of operation, an instruction way. And the only way you can do that is when you go back to your manufacturer and find out, why did he manufacture me? What did he have in mind? And what did he intend? If you sort that, here, you will open the door you like, because now you're effectively representing and occupying. That's the key.
Thank you. Skin in the game. I think we get suffocated by looking at the bigger scale. We don't want to start from where we are. In most cases, you would want to say, I want to be like ZCCM. Okay? I want to deal with people that are ZCCM. This comes with scale. Start from where you are. Like for a young person, like they have mentioned, skin in the game, the efforts that you have put there. The network is a very important skin in the game. It's very, very important. Somebody will come and will just give you that free connection. There is a grant which you can apply for. And this grant, all you have to do is you just have to match it with what you can do. Your father may come in from the young person's perspective, because what is happening is young people are looking at the SCCM scale than where, first of all, they're supposed to start from. For me, I believe in the principle of starting small, thinking big, if you don't have the capital, if you don't have the connection to capital. So all of us, we run our own lens. My success is not your success. And you cannot limit God based on what I've succeeded. You can be more than me or than anybody else. But in most cases, we want to compare. My daughter was just telling me this 3 days ago. Comparing your worst with the best of somebody. Instead of comparing the best and the best and the worst and the worst. So you can imagine the variance when you compare your worst and the best of somebody else. And then, entrepreneurs, they ride on other people's money. And that's a fact. So the moment you get this commitment in there, and you've got a product, you've got the cash flow, you've got the purpose that you are serving, money will come, money will flow. One person will deal with you, and that person will sell you with another person. Like for us, there is a continuum of funds. They've got the impact investors, you've got the angel funds. The impact investors will come, they'll do a deal with you. It will be a win-win. They'll go and sell you to another investor. It will be a win-win. They will sell it to another bigger investor. And in this, you have to look at where do you belong in terms of the money you're looking for. Are you looking for equity, debt? Are you looking for angel financing, impact financing? And we just structure that for you to scale up the business. But if you start from how to be ZCCM, then you won't start from anywhere. Start small. Then the issue of humbleness. For us, that's what we pray about all the time. I liked when you said, do you know who I am? There was I don't know whether you've seen this video, where somebody was traveling business class. And then he was talking to this attendant at the airport. And they said, how can you mess up my seat? And what is this all about? Do you know who I am? Then the lady just got in the PS system and says, ladies and gentlemen, there's this person in red, he doesn't know himself. If somebody can come and recognize him. You see, yes, you don't know who you are. Why should you even say that you don't know who I am? It's very true that you don't know. Because if you know who you are, you don't even have to say that. The facts will just speak for themselves. So humbleness comes in when you know that you are used by God, and God can take this away anytime from you. Anytime.
Wow, fantastic. We could go on, but unfortunately, time is not our end. And just another round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time.